Hey y'all, in today's video I want to show you guys how to make a bracelet out of flat wire, if the camera will focus on it, out of flat wire and a thick and thin round wire. So let's get started. So for today's project I recommend having your favorite pliers on hand. Mine are flat nose, just like the name implies, round nose, bent nose, wire snips, and nylon jaw pliers. Then we have 18 gauge and 26 gauge silver plated copper core para wire. They are my absolute favorite wire to use. The enamel on this holds up fantastically, even through like hammering and stuff, as y'all will see today, which we do have a little nylon and brass headed hammer here, jeweler's hammer. We have 26 gauge silver plated silver. And then here we have, I think it's an 18 gauge flat aluminum wire. And I'm only going to use about, I'm going to cut us off like 9 inches of this. Give ourselves a little bit of extra, just for the sake of doing extra. Let's do 10 inches. There's no telling how I might want to do the ends. So I'm using just my wire snips, flush cutters, and snipping. Now you can see here, there's 2 different types of ends that this will leave. You can see this end, sorry for the paint on my hands, I was painting dragon eyes earlier today. You can have like a very flat end or a very pinched end. See how those are very slightly different? And so I'm striving for flat ends. Now we can come through, and I'm working on a like marble 3/4 inch thick work surface. So that's what I'm going to be hammering on, but you could use like an anvil or something. I don't know if I already said this, but there will be a link of tools and materials, like a list down in the video description below, to where you can go and purchase your own if you see something that you just can't live without. And so now what I'm doing is I'm coming through and I am just straightening and flattening out my wire with my nylon jaw pliers. And what this is doing is it's serving to work harden it. And if you want to keep a very smooth, clean, reflective surface, I really recommend doing that, because you can see how it looks there. But I kind of want something with a little bit more texture. So we can go through with our nylon head hammer. And you can see it's giving us a little bit of spread, but it's also giving us some texture there. And to reduce that spread, I'm kind of just shaping with my fingers. And this is going to give it a much more rough look. And then I can go through, this is a well-worn hammer, so it does not have a smooth head. And so there you can see no texture, and I really kind of like it with that little bit of texture. So I'm going to finish up the full length of this, and then I'll meet y'all right back here. Again, it's so shiny. So here you can see the overall shape of our flat wire has taken a little bit of a curve to it from whenever we were hammering it. So I'm just going to run it between my fingers again. Get a little bit, nice and flat. I want it to stay flat to our work surface, and you can also come through and try to keep it leveled down on the side against our work surface. I'm just trying to keep it level on all fronts. I don't want it distorting one way or the other. There we are. Nice straight solid piece of wire. And now I'm going to cut very similar lengths of our 18 gauge wire, and before I remove it from the spool, I am coming through with our nylon jaw pliers and just getting any texture and stuff out of it. Like, I'll show you one that has been straightened with the pliers versus one that hasn't. So here you can see this hasn't been straightened and this has. So you can see this has much more of a curve to it. And it also has, I don't know, just little bits of bumping and stuff. So it's, whenever doing a project like this where you want everything to line up nicely flush side by side, taking this extra step can really make a big difference. If you don't have nylon jaw pliers, you can accomplish this same thing by, or at least a very similar result, by using a piece of denim or something to kind of run, you know, the wire through. As it heats it up, it kind of work hardens it and straightens it out a little bit for you. And then I'm going to come through and I'm going to pull off a double arm span of this 26 gauge wire. So I've found the middle of my length of 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to come in here and around the center of my 18 gauge wire, I'm going to wrap 5 rotations. We can actually do this much closer to the tip. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then one to grow on just because. I'm going to unwrap this side. And then compress it down and scooch that just towards the center. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see how that sits just like that. And now we're going to place our wire. We're going to kind of be working around this wire, if that makes sense. We're going to place it just snug right up to there. And now I'm going to place our second piece of 18 gauge wire. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to go off camera. Flush up against the side. And I'm going to wrap very carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 full rotations. And then I'm actually going to bring this around to the front side here. See how it sits? The goal is to get these ends to line up against each other. I'm going to zoom out just a hair because I keep wandering off camera. But you can see here how this end is kind of bending that way. I'm just going to take it and gently curve it with my fingers to give us a little bit of an opening here, because that's going to make it a lot easier to just wrap the wire around. So there's 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Then wrap around. And we're going to go bring this one down just a bit, keeping it nice and tight across the back of our wire. There's 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Now you can keep this bracelet as simplistic or as decorative as you would like. You know, I don't want you to feel like you have to do something just because that's the way that I'm doing it. And so I'm coming around, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and around the rest of the way. Again, keeping those wires nice and straight. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like, you could add little beads along the sides, you could put beads along here, you could do engraving along the flat metal, just, you know, whatever you like, whatever you feel inspired to do. Then bring it around to the front. And the reason why I'm working from the middle is I feel like it gives me a lot more control to not have to be really bringing my arm out far to hook around the wire. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Keeping it all nice and tight and tidy, and then just bringing it around. And we're going to continue along like this. And I'm going to just squeeze that down. But yeah, just kind of continue along And I'm going to bring this bracelet to around 7.5 inches. So I'm gonna get this end to about 3.25 from my starting point. And then I'll meet y'all right back here to show you how we'll start it back up going in the other direction. So now to come around to our other side, let me go ahead and smush this down. You can see the pattern that we're doing is very, very repetitive. This is a great opportunity to practice wire tension, wrapping, spacing, and evenness, as well as keeping count of your rotations and wraps and stuff. So I'm going to just continue wrapping around, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then wrapping it around. And you can see you don't have to do a little twist like that, but I kind of liked just rotating it around because I function best wrapping right here as opposed to, you know, wrapping with the wire, you know, away from me. I like it between my hand and me. It makes me feel like I have more control over it. Whenever you're wrapping, you want to be careful to not cross over your own work, like that right there. If that happens, just go on and get in there and straighten it back up. And because you want those wires laying side by side next to each other. You can actually give yourself a little bit of space in between them, because it always, like how there's some space there, you can just take it and smush it back down. 3, 4, and 5, just like that. Nice and tight, keep everything nice and snug, holding it, fold it over. You know, and this is one too that you want to make sure that you don't fold it over. Sometimes it can be hard to make yourself mess up, but there you go. See how it's not sitting the way that you imagine you'd want it to? It's poking out like that. Just get in there with your fingernail. You can either lift the wire and pull it out just a bit. Just you want them all sitting down right next to each other. So I'm going to continue doing this pattern the rest of the way down to until we've reached our full length, or however far the wire gets me. So I'll meet y'all right back here. So here you can see I only have just a little tail of wire left attached to our design. So I'm coming through, and with the assistance of our bent nose pliers, grabbing the end of that tail and kind of squishing and pulling everything down. And I'm going to leave this tail just hanging out like that. This has only really gotten us like 5 inches. It not as far as I would have liked it to. So I'm going to add a little bit of wire. Probably, yeah, I can probably just work off the spool, which what that means is I'm just going to pull a length off, but I'm not going to actually cut it. So coming in, you can see here, this wire's coming in on the back side. So I'm going to come in from the back side with our new wire. Well, actually, no, I'm going to come in from the front side as if it were continuing around. Front side with our new wire. And I did 2 rotations, so now I'm going to do 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3 rotations. And I'm going to take this. You can see right here how it's kind of folded over very oddly, like that. We want to take that and just kind of pull and tighten it down. That way everything's kind of lined up right next to each other. Squeeze it down on itself. And go ahead and wrap that around to the other side. And then we're going to continue weaving the design as if nothing ever happened. So there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we'll just wrap it around to the back side, push those wires kind of gently out of the way. And I'm going to do another couple of rotations before snipping those off. So let me go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So see how that has happened. So now I'm going to take our flush cutters, and with the flat side of them, I'm going to come in and just snip as super close to the wire as I can. And you can feel and possibly even see how there's some little ends poking out there. So I'm actually just going to take our bent nose pliers and I'm just going to fold and, fold that down until you can rub it on your finger with nothing snagging. And I actually happen to be wearing a knit shirt, so we're actually going to take it, it's snagging just a little bit. Getting some little fuzzies in it. You want to make sure that, I want you to be, like, whoever ends up buying this from me, I want them to be able to wear it with raw silk and it not snag a thing. Still snagging a little bit. So, we're just going to get in there. And no snagging. So there we are. And that's how I like to test it. And then throw your wire on the ground, because, you know, why not? And so we'll just continue wrapping around until we get, I'm going to try to bring myself to where I have about 1 inch left of wire. So I'll meet y'all right back here when we get there. Okay, so we're back. I have woven, I think, as much as I'm going to get woven. If you have any like weird spacing or anything, you can kind of try to fit your fingernail in there and like loosen things up and smush it together. I'm gonna go ahead and trim our last little bit. I left some of a tail on there because I'd rather the wire finish on the inside than on the very outer edge, if that makes sense. So I feel like if it's finished here towards the inside, then it's going to be a lot less likely to snag things. Okay, and so now let's zoom out so you can see what else is happening. And I actually just have like a bottle of water here. And you could take that and just kind of gently guiding it with your fingers, your thumbs, wrapping it on around. There's a little bit more give on the bottle than what I wanted, so let's try something else. Here I have a canister of like rings or beads. It's a pretty commonly found bead organizer. And I'm actually going to size it down quite a bit. So there we go. Getting a really nice, I mean, a naturally round shape. Nobody's wrist is completely round, but it's a start. And that we can then open back up from there. And your goal is you want to not have any kinks in your wire, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do from here is I'm actually using my fingers to measure. I want to bring this out to about 2 finger widths from where the weaving stops. So like if that's where the weaving stopped, I'm going to line my finger up with it and then come here. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to do my cut right there. I like using my body parts to measure with because I typically always have them with me. Hopefully. And so that way, even when I'm on the road and I don't have a ruler, well, I'm working with my hands anyhow. So there we go. Getting that kind of snipped off nicely. Excuse me. And so from here, we can take our round nose pliers and come to about a halfway point. Come in a little bit more, maybe a third. from where the wire stops. And I'm going to grab our our flat wire, and I'm just pushing it up and over. Just like that. And I'm going to do that same thing to the other side. Just pushing it up and over. Trying to focus on working on the same spot on the pliers. That way our holes come out the same size. And so from here, I'm going to open that up just a little bit. And I'm going to be working on the ends of my pliers, the narrower point of the tips. And I'm just going to fold that around so that it's making a nice little scroll. I'm going to put my pliers back in, and I'm going to push down. And I feel like that gives us a nice little scroll worked finished end. So again, open it up just a bit. Grab as close to the tip of the pliers and as close to the tip of the wire as you can. And kind of circle it up and around. Being very careful to not squeeze too hard. This is still aluminum wire. Even though it's been work hardened, it does imprint pretty easily if you have a death grip on your pliers. Reinserting the tips and squeezing down. You want to make sure that you're squeezing it back down in line. You don't want it skewed off to one way or the other. And so now from here we can decide to do whatever we like with these guys. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip them one full finger length away. And you can see I've got this wrinkle right here on my finger from where it bends. I'm going to find the end of the weaving, bring it out that far, and then snip it in line with the tip of the meat of my finger. And just get them both to that length. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And then I'm going to splay them out just a little bit on each side. And then I'm going to use my round nose pliers, again gripping it as close to the end of the tips and as the end of the wire as I can. Oops. Gripping it and then rotating my hand around. Our goal here is to make a nice flat spiral. You don't want it to start getting three-dimensional on you. And if it does start to get three-dimensional, we can take our nylon gel pliers and just squish it. Squish it down like that. Now you could have it finished like this. I'm actually going to zoom out some so that you can see the way that my hand moves whenever I grip. So I'm gripping it and then I'm just kind of rotating around. When it gets to where my palm's up and I can't turn my wrist any further, I remove my pliers, twist back around and reinsert them. And then just kind of keep doing that same motion over and over. There we are. And so you can finish it with a little almost fleur-de-lis looking scroll work, or you can take that and hold your pliers and like bend it around to the back side. If you want it hidden, let's zoom in again so you can see what we're doing. So you could have one be on the back side and you could have one be on the front side, and then you can kind of just squeeze them down just like that. Something else that we can do is you could push one side forward, like away from you, and then one side back more towards you. And then from here, again gripping the pliers into the wires and just twisting it down into a nice tight little spiral. Oops. You can see kind of how that sits. Do the same thing on the back side. And here you can see I'm actually turning the bracelet in conjunction with repositioning my pliers. And now we can take that and Smush it real nice and tight. I think that one worked a little better for getting it to be very nicely positioned. It doesn't put an extra twist in on the wire. Smoosh. And so now we can take our mandrel, whatever it is that we're using to shape it on, and reestablish our shaping. I usually open up just a little bit and then bring the ends in like that. That way it's more oval shaped than perfectly round. There we are. And then you can just slide it right there onto your wrist and bring the ends in together, however's comfortable for you. Now this is great for if you like just regular bangles. I prefer something with a little bit more security and stability, especially since you can see how much movement this still has to it. I'd hate for it to get snagged on something and like ripped off. So what we could do is you can actually take like a large ring, like 2 larger rings, and then attach like a clasp and have it just like hook an eye or whatever you like. If I remember to, future Vaughn, you might be able to put a link up on the screen in one corner or the other where folks can go and see how to make and attach some different style of clasps. But I basically wanted to just get the gist across to you guys on how to go about doing something like this. That way you can take this very basic technique, like this very simplistic technique, I should say, and refine it and elaborate on it in your own creative way. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I'm really excited to start working more with flat wire with y'all. So keep an eye out in future tutorials for more flat wire projects. So, because I mean, it can be, it's different, but that's not a bad thing. It's just, I think it's going to be pretty exciting to get to explore what all this type of wire can do. If you guys have any ideas or requests for future tutorials, I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy our free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, as well as get digital download content, behind the scenes footage, entries into our fairy house giveaways, monthly craft crates, all the different things that we do here at Back to Earth Creations, please check us out on Patreon. There'll be a link down in the video description below where you can pledge as little as $1 or as much as you like. Yeah, the proceeds from that go towards the daily production of free videos, as well as our artisan education efforts that we do at conventions, where I teach free hands-on workshops to the attendees. So that way, you know, if you're in the area and you want to learn how to make stuff like this, all you do is show up to the convention and take the class. It's free to you. Well, you pay to get into the convention, but the class is free, and all the tools and materials are provided thanks to our patrons. So whatever you make, you get to take home with you. So that's always fun. But thank you guys so much again, and I'll see y'all in our next video. Happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.